Hello everyone, I'm Jacob Kaufman, I'm the nerd on the street, and today we're talking about standard notes. Okay everybody, so the app that I'm talking about today is one that doesn't seem super exciting on the surface, but I decided to finally make a video about it because I've been using it for years now. I started using it back in June 2017. I subscribed to the extended plan, the premium plan, in September of that year, and when it came time to renew in 2019, I renewed it really without a second thought, because at this point, standard notes has become very ingrained in my life. It's become a huge part of how I use my phone and my computer. So let me tell you about it a little bit and then I'll show it to you. Standard Notes is a note-taking app. You use it to take notes and it syncs them between your different devices. I've tried out a lot of different note-taking apps and there are a lot of them out there. Some of them work really well, but they're not great on the privacy front. These are apps like Google Keep or Simple Note. You know, when it comes to notes, my philosophy is that you should be able to jot down whatever is in your head at any given moment. Obviously, when I'm making YouTube videos, there's a little bit of a filter that's running in my head telling me what I can and cannot say, and sometimes I have to pause and think about, okay, is what I'm about to say going to be a problem on YouTube or Dailymotion or any of the websites that I might post my videos to? But when you're taking a note, you should not have to worry about what other people would think if they saw the note. When it comes to a notes app on your phone or your computer, ideally that is going to be just as private as if you were writing with a pen and paper in a physical notebook. So services such as Google Keep or Simple Note that don't encrypt your notes on the server, they're basically eliminated from my list right away because I do not trust the companies running those apps, even if they were more trustworthy companies than Google or Automatic, who aren't the most privacy-friendly companies. It doesn't really matter who it is. If anybody has access to the plain text notes that I'm writing, that's a problem. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there are some notes apps that are really great at privacy. They use encryption. They give you the option of self-hosting. These are things like QONote, which syncs with the Notes app in a Nextcloud or OwnCloud server, and Turtle. But a lot of these apps that have this strong privacy, they don't have a very good UI. They're not built with standard widgets on mobile phones, so they don't feel like normal apps. They're slow when they open up. It takes too many seconds before you can start writing down a note. A big part of note-taking for me these days is the convenience of doing it. If I am talking to somebody on the phone and I wasn't thinking I was going to have to write anything down, but oh, all of a sudden they're telling me information that I need to write down. You know, I don't have any notebook, pen and paper stuff on my desk here. What I use is notes on the computer. So for a notes app to really be worthwhile, I need to be able to open it up and start writing very quickly. And of course, the syncing between different devices has to be very reliable as well. Turtle in particular, that one had very strong privacy, but sometimes it would either not sync certain notes or it would lose the decryption keys for some notes. It had this convoluted setup where you only had one password, but every note was encrypted using a separate key derived from that password. And so sometimes you would have notes that were unable to be decrypted, which basically means they've been lost. And once again, that's no good. Usually when I'm writing something down in a note, I'm writing it down because I'm not entirely confident that I'm going to be able to remember it. So if my Notes app is forgetting things that I am also forgetting, then the Notes app is useless. So privacy, ease of use, UI, UX, and reliability of the syncing system, those are really the things that I was looking for in a Notes app. And the reason why I'm still using Standard Notes 3.5 years later is because it handles all of those very well. Now, Standard Notes is a little on the pricey side for a note-taking application. Not that you need to pay them, but I actually do find some of the extended features that you get by paying very useful. They improve the experience a lot, and I really honestly I like what they're doing, the way that I can not worry about my notes. I've got a lot of different programs that I use on my computer. I switch between different web browsers sometimes. When it comes to making videos, I have to decide which program I'm going to use to record my audio and what I'm going to use to edit the video. You know, I'm a nerd. I like switching between different applications and comparing apps that are being worked on out there. But Standard Notes, I enjoy the simplicity of just not having to worry about it. It's my go-to notes app. I use it on my desktop, my laptop, my phone, my tablet. I am 100% confident in the privacy features that it offers, and it has not failed me in terms of syncing yet. So if you've never used a Notes app and you're not sure why somebody would really want one, I would encourage you to try out Standard Notes just with a free account. I have been using it more over the years as I've gotten more used to having it. But if you are used to Notes apps and you're currently using something else, maybe you're using something like the iCloud syncing stuff on Macs and iPhones or Google Keep on Android, and maybe you're wanting to switch to something a little bit more privacy focused, but you're not sure what to go with, I think that Standard Notes might work well for you too. And just to be clear, this video is not sponsored in any way. I've interacted with the developers a couple of times over the years on GitHub, through email, but everything I'm saying in this video about Standard Notes is just really how I feel about it, like I said, since I use it so often. So with that said, we're going to cut to a screen recording now, and we'll start by taking a look at the desktop app for Standard Notes. All right, everyone, so here we are on the desktop, and this is the Standard Notes desktop application. Now, right off the bat, it is an Electron app, and I know some people might not like that it's an Electron app. I personally already use several other Electron apps: Telegram, Discord, Rocket Chat. So Electron apps, as far as I'm concerned, that just means that it's going to be very consistent across different desktop computers. If you don't know what that means, an Electron application is basically a website running inside of a window on your computer. So some people don't like them because they might not look as integrated with the rest of your system. Like I said, I have no problem with it, so we're just going to move on from that. Now, this is not what Standard Notes looks like out of the box if you just go and download it today. What it looks like is this. And I was actually using the default theme for a very long time for Standard Notes. I only switched to the dark theme on my desktop within the last month or two. But as you can see, the default theme is very simple. It's very plain, straightforward, which is exactly what I was looking for. There are some Notes apps out there, like I said, QOwnNote was one of them, and that's one where you either have this desktop application that just seemed overcomplicated, it had too many menus, too much to distract from what you're actually writing down, or you're in the very simple Notes app in the Nextcloud interface, but then that's in a web browser, you've got a URL bar, you've got other tabs open. So I like having this separated out into its own window and having a status icon in my taskbar so that I can get to it easily. Now, the first thing that I normally do if I was setting this up on a new system is I collapse the tags view. As you can see, I've got 561 notes, including my 8 demo notes here that I added just for this video. And I have absolutely no tags because I just don't use tags. When I'm writing down notes in this app, I don't have time to tag them. The whole point is that it's supposed to be quick and easy and I shouldn't have to think about it too much. So what I do is I just add the notes, and then the search feature, which works very well, is how I find older notes if I don't want to scroll through my whole list. Now, it's very easy these days to just collapse the sidebar, and I love that you can do that. It seems like a simple thing, but for the first couple of years that I was using Standard Notes, that was actually not possible to do. These columns between these different sections of the application were just hard-coded in how wide they were, percentage-wise. Now, I actually got around that because Standard Notes does something pretty cool, at least if you're an extended member. If you have an extended account, which you can see I've got one until 2024. I renewed it for 5 years when it was up for renewal in 2019, just because I knew I was going to keep using this application for a while. Extended members get access to a large number of extensions, basically different editors you can use to edit your notes and different themes you can use for the application. But one feature that you also get is the ability to import your own extensions. And so what I actually did, I've got a theme here under my list of themes called No Tags. And this is actually not a theme that Standard Notes ever made. This is one that I made myself. At this point, I don't think it's going to work. If I try and activate it, it doesn't do anything because I haven't updated it in quite a while since they made it so that you can just drag this tag sidebar closed without having to write any code. But back before that was possible, what I did was, if we go to nerdonthestreet.com/downloads, I've got a file here called no-tags.css, and I dropped this file in here in September of 2017. And this is a CSS, basically it's a theme for Standard Notes, and all that I did was I set display none on the tags section. And then I just copied that URL and I pasted it in here in the import extension area. And that's how I got it to show up in my themes list. And back when that was the actual class name that this sidebar was using, this theme worked to just hide the tag sidebar. So that's kind of starting off on a tangent, but I think it's really cool that you can write your own extensions for this Notes app, because I know some people out there are going to have different needs than me. And even though I usually just use plain text in my notes, you might want a more complicated editor, or you might want to theme this a little bit differently to match your desktop. I personally use the Midnight theme. It's a dark theme with a blue accent, and that matches my KDE Plasma dark theme pretty well. But this is a fairly open platform. The application's open source, so you can go and see what all of the different classes and IDs for the different UI aspects are, and you can write your own theme if you want to pretty easily. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, what I do is I use the Midnight theme, I collapse the tags section, and then here on Arch Linux, I sometimes have problems with this Electron window not wanting to resize. I was having an issue for a while where I had an extra scroll bar on the side, and I think it's because Arch Linux is shipping a more up-to-date version of Electron than Standard Notes is developing against. But what I ended up doing fairly recently is coming into the View menu here, unchecking this Use Themed menu bar option. It says this preference has been saved, so I'll just right-click up in the status icon, I'll quit out of Standard Notes, and I'll open it back up. And when we open it up, you can see that it will be back to using the standard KDE Plasma window decorations. So that's how I got this looking the way that it looks. Now the interface is very simple. You can see there's two columns. The left column is your list of notes, so we can scroll and see our different notes down there. This uses sort of an infinite scrolling mechanism where the scroll bar, once you reach the bottom of this list, it will load more of your notes farther down in the list. And then if you want to quickly get farther back in the list, you can just search, like I said. You can also sort by different things. So I've got this sorted by date modified right now. If I come down here to demo note number 5 and I make a change here, then you can see it pops up to the top of my list of notes because that's the most recent one that I've modified. But I can also sort by date added if I wanted to. If I do that, you can see that it goes back to the order that I actually added the notes in. You can also sort alphabetically by title if you want to, and you can reverse the sorting order very easily. So the left side is going to be your list of notes, and then over on the right side is where the note window is, and this is where you can type. You can see up here at the top right, it says saving whenever I'm making changes. And then it says all changes saved once those changes have been sunk back up to the Standard Notes server. So it's very easy to see and confirm when your notes have been saved. Now, if you're offline, you can still use this application. Even though it's an Electron app, the app is downloaded onto your computer when you're using this. They actually distribute it as an app image on their website, which I'm a huge fan of, because just like with Electron, using an app image means you're going to have a very similar experience on any Linux system. But if you're offline and you're editing your notes, you can just continue to edit different notes, and then once you get back online, it syncs them all at the same time. Now, as you can see, I'm just using a very simple text editor here. This is not monospace, it is a serif font, but it's just plain text, basically. There's no formatting that I can apply. And that's how I write most of my notes. Once again, just because it's quick and it's easy, I know it's gonna look the same on all my different devices. But let's say you're somebody who does want to use a monospace font. Say you wanna pretend you're using Notepad or KWrite or gedit, one of those actual plain text editors. You can come up to the options drop down and turn on a monospace font very easily for any of your notes. As you can see, there is spell checking by default, and you can turn that on or off very easily as well. And there are all kinds of options that you can use on any particular note. Let's say that you're writing a note that's got some sensitive information in it. Sensitive information. And let's say that you might be scrolling through your notes while you're in front of other people and you don't want them to accidentally catch a glance of this note. You're not gonna tap into this note, maybe on your phone, but you just don't want them to see it while you're scrolling through your list of notes. You can turn the preview off just by clicking that preview item. And now when you're in your other notes, none of that sensitive information is showing in the list here. You can also pin a note, so I'm on note number 7 right now. If I pin this to the top, it just stays at the top of my list. It doesn't matter what my sorting options are, the pinned notes are going to come before everything else. So that's very useful. If there's a note you know you're not gonna change anymore, you can lock the note, and that's going to basically put it into read-only mode So I can select text, but I can't type anymore right now. So just all kinds of stuff you can do. If there's a possibility you might want to do a particular thing with a note, they have thought of it and implemented it in this program most likely. And if not, it's open source, so you can go and submit a pull request maybe to do it yourself. Now here in the editors dropdown, this is also pretty cool. Like I said, I usually use the plain editor, but there are also other editors you can use. Let's say I want a note with a little bit more formatting. I'm going to make a new note here. I'll say demo note 9. And in the editor, I'm going to select Advanced Markdown to start with. So this is an editor that gives you some formatting options, as you can see. So I can select a heading here, and I can say this is a heading, and then I can make a bold, and I'm just hitting Control B to, oh, I unbolded when I hit it the second time, but I can use Control Z to go back and undo that. So I can make a bold word and an italic word. And you can see that this is putting some extra characters in here. And that's because the Advanced Markdown editor lets you make formatting using Markdown, obviously. It gives you a row of buttons here that you can click to easily add things in. And you can also use keyboard shortcuts to affect the formatting like I just showed you. But the nice thing about using the Markdown editor is that if you later go back to the regular old plain editor, this is still fairly readable. If you work with Markdown often, you're going to know that this is going to look like a heading and this is supposed to be bold. Even if you don't look at Markdown too often, this is still pretty readable. It doesn't look too crazy when you fall back to plain text. The Plus editor, on the other hand, this one's more what you see is what you get. We can do formatting without having to have those control characters in there. So if I come in here and I remove my Markdown syntax, I can then go and reapply the formatting. I'll make this a header again. I can make a word bold and make a word italic, once again using those keyboard shortcuts. And you can see I don't have those extra little characters being added. The downside to this one is that if we fall back to our plain text editor from a note that we were editing in the Plus editor, you can see that was actually using HTML tags in the background. So the note that's being saved to your computer into the cloud, in plain text, it's going to have this HTML markup in it, so it won't look as clean if you're editing it with a different program. It's really nice that they give you different options, based on your needs in terms of where you're going to be editing the notes, how you're going to save them, how you might want to restore them later. You can choose what's most appropriate and what you're most comfortable with for what you're going to use. So I'm just going to apply some formatting to this one again. And then I'm going to make a new note here. Now, the last editor I want to show you in this video is the Simple Task editor, and I'm going to make a note called To-Do List. And by the way, you can see when I make a new note, it names it Note 564, gives it a default name, but it won't actually save it in my list until I start typing something, either in the header or in the note itself, because until I do that, it would look the exact same way if I get out of that and then try and make a new note again. That's a nice touch that just avoids having empty notes sitting around in case you started to make a note and then changed your mind. Now here in our to-do list note, I'm going to select the Simple Task editor, and this is something I was really looking for when I started looking around for notes apps. And I actually compromised and said, okay, I can use Markdown checklists. I don't need to have the ability to make actual checklists back when I was looking for a notes app, because this Simple Task editor, once again, this did not exist when I started using the program. But let's say you've got a to-do list, or maybe you've got a shopping list, just any kind of list that would be good to keep track of what you've done and what you haven't. I can type in some tasks here. I'll say edit video and hit enter, and it puts it into my open tasks. I'll say upload podcast, write, displaced, script. So I can just add some tasks in here, and then I can go and obviously I can check them. And when I check them, it moves them down to completed tasks. It also has this nice preview over here. It's a little bit bulky in terms of how much space it consumes in the preview compared to other notes, but it does show you at a glance how many of these tasks you've completed. You can easily delete all of your completed tasks, or you can reopen them if you want to reset the list. Maybe it's a list that you do every single day. It's nice and easy to do that. There are lots of other editors, like I mentioned, that you can get. Personally, the ones that I've shown are the only ones that I've ever found the need to use, but you can go and browse through the other stuff that they have. So in terms of other features here, I'm also going to come back down to my demo note 9. I'm going to type one more sentence. And up here, we also have a history dropdown, and this history dropdown shows you all of the revisions you've made to a note. And this is also synced. So it's not just keeping track of what all of your notes look like at any given time. Part of the standard notes syncing service keeps track of all of the history for all your notes and syncs that history between all your different devices too. So I can come down here and I can click at any point and see what a note looked like at a certain point in time. Usually you would use this if you actually got rid of something in the note and then later you want to restore what you deleted. You would go up to your history, see what the note looked like before we did that, and we can either restore this to the current note, which will replace the contents of the note with what the note looked like at this time, or we can restore this as a copy, which is going to add this copy version of the note into our list here, and from there we can go and rename it and continue editing. Now, speaking of history and backups, we're not just limited to using Standard Notes' own syncing service to access and save these notes. Part of the reason they call it Standard Notes is because they save these notes in standard formats, and it would be fairly easy to get off of this platform if you ever wanted to or needed to for any reason. If we come down here to our account menu, you can see I've got data backups, and from here I can easily download a backup of all my notes at any time if I want to. I can either download them encrypted or I can download them decrypted, and I'll show you how you would decrypt them if you download them encrypted in just a moment. So you can get a snapshot of your notes manually at any point that way. But we've also got a backups menu up here, and I've got automatic backups set up. You can see I've got an item to disable that if I wanted to, or I can change my backups location. If I click open backups location here, that's going to open my file browser. And I've got a folder here in my home directory called Standard Notes Backups. And this has been going since I installed Arch Linux on this computer last in November of 2018. And every single day, if anything has been changed in my notes, the app is automatically going to make a copy of all my notes and save it here encrypted in my home directory. I can open one of these text files up and you can see what one of these backups looks like. And this is pretty much what you're going to be syncing to their server as well. So you can see it's kind of gibberish because it's encrypted, which is what we want. When it's being sunk over the internet, saved on their servers, we don't want Standard Notes themselves to be able to read our notes. We want it all encrypted just like this. Pretty much the only thing that's not encrypted is the date that it was created and the date that it was last updated, which I would imagine the syncing service actually does need to know in order to handle that syncing. So if you ever need to actually use one of these backups, there's a decrypt.html file that you can download. And what this is, if we take a look at it in kwrite first, it's just a standard HTML document with a JavaScript application in it to decrypt your notes. So if we open this up in a web browser, this is an offline tool that you can use to decrypt one of your backups at any point. So if Standard Notes ever goes down, if they go out of business, they give you this tool so that you're not relying on them to access your notes. You just choose a file, you type in your account password, which is what the notes are encrypted with, and then you either download all the notes in a single file or you can download a zip archive with just plain text files, one per note. You know, providing an offline tool to interface with the data is something not a lot of services have the confidence to do, but it's important to have that control and that ability to access your own data. Now, in addition to the local backups here, I've also got another backup system set up, and that's an email backup system. If I head to Fastmail, which is my email provider for Nerd on the Street, I've just done a search for Standard Notes, and you can see that they've been emailing me every single day, once again with a copy of my notes. It's encrypted and attached to the email. So because it's encrypted, I don't have to worry about my email provider reading it. But once again, I can come in here to any particular day, and if I wanted to see what all of my notes looked like on January 29th, for example, I can come in here, download the encrypted file, and then they link to where you can download that same offline script to decrypt it. Now, this seems really antiquated. You know, tech people facepalm when users try and use email as a file storing mechanism. But the reason why Standard Notes was proud of this feature when they introduced it was because email is another standard. You know, it's not a cloud service that you're locked in with one provider. Email is something that everybody has, and you've got an email provider that you hopefully trust. And so it's a very easy way to automatically back up and save this information without compromising on privacy. So that's really cool. The last feature I want to show you here in the desktop app is a feature that I use more on my laptop We're on my desktop now, so I had the feature disabled, but if I come down to the account menu again, you can see we've got a passcode lock option. Now you can lock individual notes as well, but let's say that you've got this application installed on a laptop and you're traveling with that laptop, or maybe you've got the laptop open in a room with other people and Standard Notes is installed. You don't want them to be able to just open up Standard Notes and read all of your notes. Passcode Lock basically lets you add a passcode to open the application up. I'm going to click Add Passcode here. I can type in a password and confirm it. And those can be letters and numbers. They can be as long as you want. I just like to keep it simple so that I don't forget it. But now I've got my passcode lock enabled. You can set a timer on it so that it actually relocks, but I'm just going to leave it at the default setting. I'm going to quit out of Standard Notes, open it back up, and we're going to get this authentication required screen. If I type in the wrong password here and I click submit, it's not going to work. Invalid authentication, it says, but I can type in my actual passcode that I just set. I can submit that and it opens up the application. So it's a great way to make sure, once again, if you've got a computer sitting near other people, or if you're traveling with a computer, to make sure that other people won't be able to just open up your notes and read them, because obviously the password that you use to sign into your account, it's also being used to encrypt your notes. It should be fairly complex and secure, but of course that's going to be saved in the application so you don't have to type in such a long and secure password every single time you need to jot down a note. So the passcode is a great way to add an additional layer of security, something simpler and quicker for you to type, but that still protects your notes from being read by other people physically. So I'm going to remove that passcode. And at this point, I'm going to grab my Android phone and I'm going to show you what it looks like on Android. Once again, a big part of this whole note thing for me is syncing between devices, because I might be here in front of my desktop when I need to jot down a note, or I might be out and about with only my phone when I need to either take a note or read a note that I wrote down earlier. So here I am on my Android phone. I'm currently recording my screen, and you can see I've got Standard Notes down in the dock of my phone since it's one of the most used applications that I have. I'll tap on that to open it up, and you'll see it's going to decrypt our notes. You can see at the top, decrypting, it's going about 100 at a time, then it syncs again, and now I have all of my notes here on my phone. The Android app really blends in well with the Android OS. It uses sort of a material design look, and I can tap into different notes. I can write whatever I want in here, making changes to notes. You can see, just like on my desktop, the app makes it really simple to see when the note has been successfully sunk. When I go back out to my list, now that note's at the top because I'm sorting by last modified. And then on my computer, a few seconds later, you can see that popped up to the top of the list as well as that change sunk over. The Android app does support different editors as well. If I come into my to-do list, it just initialized the to-do editor. And once again, I can check things off. Really useful if you're walking around in a store, for instance, using a shopping list. And then I can come back out, and I think demo note number 9 was the one I was using Markdown for. So once again, I've got the Markdown editor with my menu bar there as well. We've got all the same options we do on the desktop. They're organized so that it's easier to use on a touchscreen. And once again, how I normally find my notes is using the search function. So if I type in demo note, you can see that I filter those results as I'm typing, and then I can scroll through just the notes. I actually had a note in there that wasn't one of these demo notes that came up as a search result. But yeah, it is a full text search, and it's all happening locally on your device, once again, because it's all encrypted in the cloud. But once your device downloads all the notes and decrypts them locally, it can search through them in memory. So not a whole lot to look at here. I just wanted to show you what the app kind of looked like. Very simple to make a new note as well. So yeah, that's what that looks like. Now the last thing I want to show you in this video is what happens when Standard Notes fails. What happens when it crashes? Like I said toward the beginning of the video, one of my top priorities is reliability of the syncing system and not losing data when things go wrong. I mentioned that you can edit notes offline. What happens if you edit the same note offline on several devices, and once they go back online, they now have conflicting notes? I could show you that, but instead I'm actually going to show you Standard Notes on my tablet, because I've been having a problem on the tablet recently where the app actually crashes and it ends up with data in an inconsistent state, but I have not lost any data because of that. So let me grab my tablet and show you what I'm talking about. So here I am on my tablet. This is a Samsung Galaxy Tab S2 8.0. Now I want to say, before I show you Standard Notes crashing, this tablet is quite old. This tablet's from 2015. 2015, 5.5 years old now, and I am running an unofficial Lineage OS build on it. I've got a number of side-loaded apps on here outside of the Play Store. I don't know why Standard Notes is crashing. I have not submitted a bug report to them or anything yet, because honestly, it could be a number of other things on the tablet that's causing this to happen. But I think it's valuable to see not only how an application works when everything's going as expected, but also how it recovers when something does go wrong. So I've got the app open here. You can see I've got the dark theme activated on my tablet. The app isn't super optimized for tablets. If we go into landscape mode here, it doesn't have two columns or anything. If we tap into a node, it's just going to open it up, similarly to the phone app. If you're wondering why I use this tablet upside down, by the way, it's because Samsung puts these touch-sensitive buttons that you can activate very easily while you're holding the tablet, and they're also on the wrong side anyway when you're holding it right side up. On Android, the back button's supposed to be on the left, so I use the tablet upside down. But I'm going to come into this note, and I'm just going to start typing here, and I'm going to type some gibberish. And I'm just going to keep doing that for a little while. So what I've been having happen is while I'm typing notes, we can see it's saving and it's syncing. Okay. So that took a little while to reproduce. Of course, when I'm trying to show you, it's not going to happen. But eventually the app crashed there. I don't know exactly what triggers it. I think it might have to do with switching back and forth between several different apps. Might have to do with having a long note with long lines in it. But it kicked me back to my home screen. And it did that while I was typing in the note. Now the app is constantly syncing while I'm typing, but inevitably if it crashes while I'm typing, there's going to be some characters that I typed that didn't make it up into the syncing server before the app crashed. So I'm going to open this back up, and you can see we now have a conflicted copy at the top of our list here. And after a few seconds, that conflicted copy is going to sync to our computer as well. So if we come back over to the desktop app, the tablet ended up with two different copies of the node. It had one copy locally that had a few more characters, and then it had the remote copy that doesn't have those characters. But when it gets back online, it can't just overwrite the remote copy because it doesn't know that I was working on that particular note when it crashed. It lost that information. Now, what I'm showing you is the same mechanism that's going to take over if you edit the same note on multiple devices that are offline at the same time and then bring those devices back online. Since each note has a UUID, the devices are going to look at the UUID and they're going to look at the modified time of the notes, and they're going to see that you modified the same note on different devices at different times. So rather than making any sort of decision on which one of those notes is the correct one, because chances are there's always going to be a situation where that kind of algorithm messes up, what it does instead is it just adds a conflicted copy of the note into your notes list and allows you to pick which one is the one you want to keep, or you can keep both, depending on what makes sense in your situation. So here on our desktop, I can scroll down to the bottom of our main copy of the note, and you can see the last words here that I typed before that crash were test sentence. But then if I click on conflicted copy, you can see I've got a few more characters once again. And when I'm doing this in practice, obviously I'm not just typing gibberish in practice. And then in practice, sometimes it can be more like a sentence or maybe half a sentence that I lose. Not the end of the world to lose that little information. I open the app back up right away and I know what I was typing 5 seconds ago, so I can just retype it. But like I said, I think it's interesting to see how an app behaves when something goes wrong, when there is a bug, when there's a crash, when there's an unreliable network that you're syncing over, anything that can affect the app's performance and make it do something that it wasn't designed to do. How does it react? Does it lose data like Turtle does? Or does it duplicate data like Standard Notes here does? And then you can just say, okay, well, obviously this note is the same as this note. It's just missing a few characters, so we'll delete that one, move it to our trash, and then we're left with the good one. And then on our tablet here, I can immediately refresh by dragging down, since it's an Android app, and that duplicate note goes away from the list there too. It speaks to the way that they designed the app when it handles failures fairly gracefully. So that's the only reason I wanted to show you that. Once again, not picking on them because of the Android crash. This tablet has all kinds of weird stuff going on. Like I said, the build that it's running is unofficial. I don't even know what kernel's on here off the top of my head. But it gives me a lot of peace of mind knowing that the app is designed in a way that I don't lose data when the syncing gets weird. It seems very robust and reliable from all of my experiences with it. So I want to show you a few different pages you can go to just to end the video here. Standardnotes.org is their website. Not sure why they have a .org since they are a for-profit company, but they've got links you can go to here if you want to learn more about the privacy features and that kind of thing. In addition to Linux, they do also support Mac OS and Windows. You can also sign into Standard Notes on the web at app.standardnotes.org, so you can access your notes from anywhere if you really need to. Since that's an Electron app, it's fairly easy for them to just throw the same application up on a web server. They also have a recent blog post. They had their third outside security audit just last month, and they go into the details of what encryption technologies they use and what the results of their third-party penetration test were. Some of the features that I've shown you are exclusive to extended accounts. Now, the standard package still lets you have unlimited notes syncing between devices, but for things like that history feature that I showed you, the different editors, the automatic backups, that is all stuff that you get with an extended subscription. Like I said, it's a little bit pricey for a Notes app. Right now, they're charging $150 if you want 5 years of this. You can also do a monthly plan that's going to work out to more money over time. I think I'm on a cheaper plan than this because I was pretty early to join, but this works out to about $30 a year, which for me personally, this app is totally worth. Like I said, it's just something I've used more and more often over time. And this last bit here, this is both the icing on the cake and it's the basic reason why I even considered the app in the first place. Standard Notes is open source. Even though I am using their syncing server, I'm confident that all of this security stuff that they're talking about actually exists because I can see the source code for all of it. If you want to host your own syncing server, you can do that because their syncing server is open source. So you can have your own end-to-end solution where you're controlling the server in the middle as well. The web client, which is the actual application that you're using normally on a desktop, is open source. The desktop app, the Electron wrapper around that web application, also open source. And their mobile app, both the Android and iOS builds, they're here in the same GitHub repository, open source. And they even published the app on F-Droid if you're using an Android device that does not have Google Play on it. But they also have the APK download to sideload as well. So they really cater to the most privacy-minded people, which is difficult to do. They cater to the paranoid ones who need every question answered and need everything to be out in the open, all the implementation details. I can understand if you just don't have a use for this kind of application, but if you do have a use for this kind of application, I can't think of any reason I wouldn't recommend Standard Notes over any of the competitors right now. So I hope this video was useful. I hope it showed you a little bit why I'm so comfortable with this app. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments section. But for now, I'm Jacob Kaufman. I'm the Nerd on the Street, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.